Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I'm Steve Risser along here with Justin D'Onofrio. And we got week 8 we got a busy show today. We got week 8 of the NFL season. We got the NBA season preview. But we're going to start with week 8 of the NFL season. And that will begin in LA with the Chargers and the Rams. The Chargers come into the game. No, the Chargers and the Vikings. The Chargers come into the game at 4-3, Vikings 3-3. And this should be an interesting game. This should be an interesting game between these two teams. It should be an interesting game. I think the Chargers have been struggling. We'll see if Joe Alt plays in this game, but I think this comes down to the two quarterbacks. It comes down to the two quarterbacks. It comes down to Carson Wentz, and it comes down to Justin Herbert. And I'm taking Carson Wentz over Justin Herbert any day of the week when it comes to these two quarterbacks. So if it comes down to these two quarterbacks, I'm taking Herbert over Wentz. So I got the Chargers here. I got the Chargers here close. I got the Chargers 24-20 over the Vikings. But Justin, can the Vikings bounce back from last week and get to 4-3?
I think they can with how banged up the Chargers are, but I with you here. I got Chargers 26-23. Yeah, I think Herbert bounces back this week. I know the Vikings defense going to get after him. I know, we know that Chargers off the line banged up. It'd be a huge hope they get Joe Alt back this week. But that Brian Flores defense hasn't forced a turnover now in 3 consecutive weeks, which is pretty rare. And like what you mentioned with Carson Wentz, there's just a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad with Carson Wentz. So I do rely on Justin Herbert to be just a little bit better in this one. That I do Carson Wentz, and I do think Harbaugh and co. In a game where they really need to win, I think they find a way to get it done here on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think they do. Despite the injuries, I think that with Amari and Hampton, probably without Joe Alt again. I think they pulled out. I think they pulled out. They're just clearly the better team. And you brought it up with Carson Wentz. There's good, but there's also a lot of bad with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, there is, and that's always what he's been throughout his career. You take the good with the bad, and he is actually 7-0 on Thursday night, which makes me a bit worried. But the way he's been playing lately, I think it's a huge game for the Chargers. I do think they find a way to get it done. But yeah, with Wentz, it's just a lot of inconsistencies, and the big question of what's going on with JJ McCarthy, because he was in pads last week, and even when Wentz got banged up after that pick six, Max Brosnan was warming up. So looks like they may not be. Looks like they might be really concerned about JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, it was weird because he was their number 3 quarterback last week. Yeah, there's definitely concern about McCarthy going into the game. Yeah, he was their number 3 quarterback. Yeah, there's a lot of concern there going in. So yeah, there should be a lot of concern there with him. So it should be an interesting game though. It should be an interesting game Thursday night to start week 8. You got Chargers trying to get back. Both teams trying to get back on track. Both teams that are average right now and are struggling. So both teams that lost last week. So both teams trying to get back on track Thursday night. So it should be an interesting game between those two teams. But we got to move on to the game in Pittsburgh between the Packers and the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers faces his former team for the first time. And in this game, the Steelers defense really disappointed me against the Bengals. They did. They didn't play well at all. And I think they struggle against the Packers. I think Jordan Love is good on third down. I think Josh Jacobs is enough on the ground. I think Rodgers makes his plays. I think it comes down to the end. And I think it comes down to the end where Micah Parsons makes a play against Aaron Rodgers. And that's why I'm going Packers here. I'm going Packers 27-20 over the Steelers. But, Justin, can Aaron Rodgers get revenge against his former team?
No, I'm with you here. I get the Packers 20-21. I'm all out on the Steelers after last week. That was an abysmal performance. This is the same defense that did give up 32 points in week 1 of the Jets. And we've seen that Jet offense since. So, I do think Jordan Love plays well. I think you mentioned Parsons. I think has another good game. He had a couple sacks last week. Really got going. I expect Aaron Rodgers to make some plays. DK Metcalf gets involved this week, but I do think Jordan Love just makes a couple more plays than Aaron Rodgers does this week, and the Packers get the win.
Yeah, and you brought up Micah Parsons. He was big last week. Had 3 sacks. Had a big sack on that last drive. Micah Parsons, he came up huge. He had a huge sack on that last drive against the Cardinals. Had a huge sack there, so he's starting to heat up. Yeah, and I think Jordan Love. I think he outplays Aaron Rodgers here. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had a good year so far. He's had a good year. I mean, he's had a better year than I thought. I think the defense. I thought he did what he had to do last week. He threw 4 touchdown passes. He did what he had to do, but I think the defense let him down. So Aaron Rodgers has had a good year, but I think Jordan Love outplays him in this game. I think he outplays him. in this game, and I think I think the Packers win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you here. And yeah, I think they won by a touchdown. Yeah. Rodgers played well, and he hasn't been the reason why they've lost some of these games. It's been mostly the defense this year, and defense hasn't come through. Defense didn't come through for him last week, and it's an older defense. You kind of tell, and Cincinnati just with their weapons were just beat man-to-man coverage pretty much last week. So and I think Jamar Chase said after the game, it's the Tomlin defense that does the same thing over and over, and they don't really change much. So. Um, so yeah, I think that's why I love in this receiving core. He's gonna have a pretty good game, and Tucker Kraft too has been a really reliable tight end for him as well.
He definitely has been. And then because we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, I mean, the thing about this whole Aaron Rodgers thing, and I know it's been years since it's been a couple of years since they moved on from him. But here's the thing with that: for the Packers, I think it hurt them in the short term because I think it might have cost them maybe getting to or maybe winning a Super Bowl, having Jordan Love there the first 2 or 3 years with Aaron Rodgers. But it's definitely helped them in the long term because they've been able to continue to have sustained success.
Yeah, they have. They've done a nice job developing Jordan Love. It was weird when they drafted him at the time and they sat him for a couple years, but since he's been ready to go since they took over. So yeah, in the short run or the short term, definitely may have cost them a second Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. But in the long term, it's been pretty beneficial. They have a pretty good young team around Jordan Love right now on both sides of the ball, and I don't think we've seen their best yet. Like outside of that Week 1 game against Detroit, I do think that Green Bay does have they have a high ceiling right now, and they haven't been able to touch it yet. But yeah, in the long term with Love, with all these young guys that keep them all around, I think the Packers definitely are in really good shape for the future.
They are. I think they are. Because they got their two guys. You got their quarterback and their edge rusher. They got their quarterback in Jordan Love, who is he's really good. And not great, but he's really good. And then you got your edge rusher, Micah Parsons. And last week, Micah Parsons proved why he should have gotten a second contract in Dallas and why he is in elite edge rusher in the league with the way he played.
Yeah, he was awesome last week, and they really needed that because he gets double teamed a lot, but like he hadn't really made his impact known yet. In last week he really had kind of an impact in that football game, and yeah, I expect that to kind of get him going. And and yeah, we mentioned a bunch, how much Dallas has missed him this year, and it's why he's one of the best edge rushers in the sport right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to move on to a game in the NFC East between the Eagles and the Giants, and the Eagles come off a big win last week. Jalen Hurts connecting with A.J. Brown late in the game. That was a huge play against the Vikings. And then there's the Giants, who had an absolutely historic collapse against the Denver Broncos. Historic. It all began on that drive where they were up 26-8 on 4th and 2, and Drew Phillips got the PI call. Denver then scores, and then the biggest play of that game was not running the ball on 3rd and 5. Denver only had one timeout left. If they run the ball there, they take that timeout, and they punt the ball away, and Denver's got to drive the length of the field and get 2 scores. That was the biggest play of the game. Dart throws a pick, and that's where that game turned around. That's where that game turned completely. And then everyone knows what happened after that. Denver scored. Denver scored again. Giants scored, and then the Broncos end up driving down for a game-winning field goal. We will get to that, but first we got to get to this game against the Eagles. And I think this is a competitive game. Because Jackson Dart's going to keep the Giants competitive. I think he's going to keep the Giants competitive in this game. But here's the issue: this coaching staff is not good enough to beat I know the Eagles aren't as good as they were last year, but this coaching staff is not good enough to beat the Eagles twice. I think this is a close, competitive game. I think both quarterbacks play well. I think Saquon plays pretty well too. I think this might be the best game he has since. This could be the game where he gets close to 100 yards. I think he plays well too. I think Jalen Hurts throws a couple touchdowns, and I think Jackson Dart moves the ball down the field too. But I think there's going to be a mistake, a coaching mistake, or a bad play on special teams the Giants are going to make that's going to cost them here. And that's why I'm going Eagles here. I'm going Eagles 27-23 over the Giants. But Justin, can the Giants bounce back from their epic collapse from last week and sweep the Eagles?
No, I have the Eagles here as well, 27-17. Yeah, I can't imagine watching my team collapse like the way the Giants did. And how did the Giants get off the mat this week? And now you're playing an Eagles team that was able to stretch the field last week. They took some shots. The passing game looked better. and you just played them, just over 2 weeks ago. I think you're getting an angry Eagles team that's really gonna be ticked off by what happened a couple weeks ago. I think Vic Fangio is gonna come up with this game plan to keep Jackson Dart in the pocket and not let him kind of get outside. Try to contain him. And I do think the Eagles defense plays well this week. I do think Jalen Hurts plays pretty well. I think Barkley gets it going on the ground, and I just think the way the Giants lost with a young football team, I just don't know how they're going to get off the mat. Because even like that Cowboys game too. You shouldn't have lost that Saint game. Like there's a couple already this year where you wish things really kind of went the other way, and I just think this is a tough game for the Giants to get off the mat from.
Here's the thing: here's the question: Is this Giants loss going to completely torpedo this season? Is it gonna torpedo this year? I still think they're not. I don't think they're going to go like a 3-14 or 2-15 because of it. But they're not. I don't think they're going to make the. I don't think they're going to make the. Number one, I don't think they're making the playoffs. And number two, I think Brian Daboll is going to. This coaching staff is going to get fired. And this game is pretty much a big reason. Is a reason why. It's a reason why. Now it's not the entire reason why they haven't been good since 2020. The coaching staff hasn't been good in 3 years. But this is a reason why. This is a historic collapse. This is a game you should never lose. This game. You should never lose this game. And and it leads me to my next question is who is most to blame for this Giants collapse? And I think it's really Brian Daboll or Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, but it's Brian Daboll. It's Brian Daboll. Number one, and 3rd and 5, you got to run the ball there. You got to run the ball there. I know Jackson Dart shouldn't have thrown that pick, but you got that was if you're up one score, yeah. You could throw the ball there because you got to get a first down. You don't want to give a team the ball back in a one possession game. In that spot in the game, in that situation of the game, you have to run the football. You have, especially with a rookie quarterback. I know he's played well, but especially with a rookie quarterback, you have to run the football there up 10. It's imperative. You have to do that. That was a huge mistake in the game. And then at the end, when they came back and took the lead, there's no way you should be rushing 3. Daboll has got to tell his defensive coordinator, you shouldn't be rushing 3 guys there. You got to be rushing 4 guys. You got to be, and you saw the frustration from Brian Burns after the game. You saw how frustrated he was with them, rushing 3 and dropping 8. You saw how frustrated Brian Burns was after the game. There's no way you should be rushing 3 guys there. So yes, Bowen screwed up, but the majority, the most blame is got to go to the head coach there in that situation, in that game.
I know I'm with you. It's on Daboll in that one. Yeah, with the rookie quarterback, he's gonna make his mistakes, and he made a costly one there. And that was huge. And also too, I know maybe not the kicker's not all on him, but like why is there always a kicking issue with the Giants the last couple of years?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. That could not be a better point you just made. Why is there a kicking issue with the Giants? And that's on 2 guys. It's on the head coach. It's on the GM. It's on the head coach and the GM. And it's a great point you made. And that's another reason why. The Jet game 2 years ago. The Jet game 2 years ago they lost because Gano was hurt and they should have never tried him out there. Then the Washington game last year. That was obvious. Yeah. And then you had the game this year. 3 games they've 3 times they have lost a game because they've had kicking issues. 3 times. That just cannot happen. That cannot happen. The problem is the head coach doesn't value special teams. The head coach doesn't value special teams. And the other thing is too, McAtomey shouldn't be on the roster, and that's on Joe Schoen. That's on Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. But Brian Daboll ignoring special teams, letting the defensive coordinator do what he wants. He doesn't. The problem is Brian Daboll doesn't coach the entire team. He doesn't coach the entire team. He coaches Jackson Dart. He loves to coach Jackson Dart. He doesn't coach the entire team, and that's why he should not be a head coach in the NFL after the season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. In the kicker situation too, that guy couldn't even. He was 12 for 18 his first year at Rutgers, and I think he kicked 1 field goal the next year. He didn't even. And it's Rutgers. So, that was a huge mistake. And I think in a game like that where you lose 2, it pretty much shows like you'd rather find out that your coach is going to melt down like that in a meaningless game. Well, maybe not meaningless, but in a week 7 game rather than a playoff game down the line too. So, I think for the organization, it's that's he was probably on his way out anyways. It was pretty likely. but this one pretty much sealed his fate that, yeah, he's going to be gone after the year. And I'm with you. He just coaches Jackson Dart. You saw, that Thursday night game against the Eagles when he ran over the tent, yelling at the medical staff. Like, he just coaches Jackson Dart. I know there's a lot of pressure on him to have to save his job right now, but that wasn't a great look either. So, yeah, I think as a football coach, yeah, you can be emotional, but I just think he's too emotional, and I think it lets him get the best of him. And yeah, that kind of shows why. The Bowman definitely deserves some blame, but yeah, that was an inexcusable loss in a game. You never should have, to allow a team to score 33 points on you after you scored 2 touchdowns yourself in the fourth quarter is inexcusable.
Yeah. Inexcusable, and that's why the coach has got to be. He's got to be fired. He's got to be fired. This is. I think we were really waiting to see. We were waiting to see, is Daboll the right guy to be the head coach? And we got our answer. We pretty much got our answer on Sunday. He is not the right guy to be the head coach of the team. Not because of Jack. I know him and Dart. Dart has played well with him so far as the head coach. But the problem is you have to coach the entire team, and he does not do that. He does not, and he's consistently not done that. This was a problem. This was an issue 2 years ago when they had a 99% chance to beat the chance to beat the Jets late in the game, and they gave up the game because he tried, instead of going for it, he tried out a kicker that was hurt. It's just these two guys. We thought they were the guy. We really liked them after 2022. I really liked them after 2022. It's been disastrous ever since. It really has been. I know, they both were able to find it looks like they were both able to find our franchise quarterback. But outside of that, the last 3 years have been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, they have it. It's that game, the Dallas game, you never should have lost. You mentioned the Jet game 2 years ago, the Washington game last year. There's games on there they never should have lost, and it's going to cost them because again, he's a good OC. He's like he'll go back next year to being to an offensive coordinator. He'll probably do a fine job there. But yeah, he's not a head coach. You mentioned it, and it's a good point about he just coaches Jackson Dart. He doesn't coach the entire team. And when you're a football coach, you're coaching anything, you got to coach the entire team. You just can't coach that one spot, and that's pretty much what he's doing. And it's not great. And the screaming at Bowen. You're the head coach. Go tell Bowen to go rush forth like that. Why'd you wait till afterwards to start screaming at him?
Exactly. That's what a good sense. That's what a good head coach does. He tells his coordinators what to do. He's not like, oh, do this, and then if it doesn't work, I'm going to scream at you. No, you should be deciding what to do. You need to take control. You need to take ownership of the situation. You need to take ownership of that situation, and you didn't.
Yeah, he didn't. But what's going to do him in? And he had him and Wink Martindale never got along, and that's going to cost him a mistake.
That was terrible. Because Wink was a good DC. But him and Daboll didn't. That was another bad thing Daboll did here. Is he couldn't get along with Wink Martindale. That was one of the best parts. He was the best coach on the staff. And they let him walk. That was terrible. He's probably laughing at them right now.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Well, he might be in trouble in Michigan right now. I think Jerome's got to make some changes off season. He might be one of them. So maybe get him back next year with a new head coach if he comes back.
They'll never be back together. That's for sure. And here's the other thing too, and Shane Bowen I think should be fired because you should number one, common sense should tell you after what happened in the Dallas game. You should not be rushing 3 and playing zone coverage there. You should be in man coverage and rushing 4 guys. That's what you should be doing in that situation. That's what you should be doing. So that's why, to me, even though it is ultimately on Brian Daboll, Shane Bowen should be fired after that game because the defensive players are, and Brian Burns is visibly Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence couldn't be more angry at him after the game. And they got they have a guy who has some experience Andre Patterson, the defensive line coach, had some experience on the staff. I would have elevated him and fired Shane Bowen. I think this is going to be problematic throughout the entire season with him being on the staff. Even though it's ultimately Daboll's fault, I think it's going to be problematic still having him on the coaching staff.
Yeah, I'm with you because those guys in the locker room aren't going to trust Bowman, especially the defensive guys. Was it at the point Bobby I heard some. Yeah, was talking yesterday. Oh yeah, we trust them. It's on us. I'm like, I don't think you guys trust them now. Like, how do you?
No, they don't.
Like, with a guy, like a guy when Burns is saying that after a game, there's no chance.
No, they don't.
There's no chance.
They don't.
So
they don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you got to make a change, but doesn't seem like it's gonna happen unless they get torched again against this week against Philly. But yeah, it's just not a good look, and I don't trust any of those defensive guys. They could say what they want at the podium. I don't trust that they believe in their defense coordinator right now.
They don't. They don't. They don't believe at all in the defensive coordinator. This coaching staff is garbage, and it should be a clean house. And I would clean house Joe. I know he got Scattaboo, and I know Dave. He let Dave all go out and get Jackson Dart, but for what's happened the last 3 years, they need to clean house. They need to clean house, get a new coach, a new GM in here. They got to clean house. I don't care about Jackson Dart being paired with a new head coach. I don't care about that. I don't care about him being paired with a new GM. I don't care at this point. Jackson Dart is good enough. I think this will be an attractive enough job that a new coach and GM will want the job because of Jackson Dart and the way Jackson Dart has played so far.
Right now, the ones that might open are already open, like the Titans.
Yeah.
Dart's playing better than Ward.
Yeah, you're taking the Giant. You're taking the Giant job over the Titan job. You're definitely taking the Giant job over the Titan job.
Yeah, be more appealing if the Jets move on from Aaron Glenn right now. Like, what are the other? Miami would more it from the jobs that are going to open. It's probably the most appealing one right now because you would think the Dolphins open, maybe the Jets, maybe the Browns open up. Cincinnati, Cincinnati, he might save his job, but Joe Flacco might save Zach Taylor's job.
Yeah.
The NFC, like it's possible. So yeah, I think you could get a pretty good head coach out of this. You thought of any names yet, or you're not there yet? Still
not
too
there
early.
Yet. Mike McCarthy's one you think of, and I don't know about Kingsbury, but McCarthy's the one you think about. Maybe give Cliff another shot, but I don't know how he is as an in-game coach. He was not that good in Arizona. So I haven't really totally thought of names yet, but Mike McCarthy would be up on the list. Mike McCarthy would be up on the list for head coaches. But one thing I do know is that this coaching staff has got to go. This coaching staff has got to be fired. It has got to be fired. There's no question about it. And Sunday absolutely confirmed
that. Yeah. Sunday proved it. And again, yeah, I know it's a brutal way to lose and all that, but yeah, that might again. I think that helps on the line that that this guy's not going to be it, and it's because you just can't lose a football game like that. It's inexcusable to lose a game like that. And yeah, he should rightfully he's going to lose his job, and maybe he shows up back in Buffalo next year because Joe Brady might get one of these head coaching jobs.
Yeah,
so
that's very possible. That's very possible that he shows up in Buffalo. That is really possible. But moving on to the team that came back and beat the Giants last week, and that is the Denver Broncos, and they host the Cowboys this week. And the Cowboys look really good. I mean, the injuries helped. The injuries to Washington was completely banged up without Debo and Terry McLaurin, and then Jaden Daniels got hurt during the game. But their offense was excellent. This should be a fun matchup. You got the best defense in the league against the best offense in the league, so it should be a fun matchup. And I think it's close and competitive. But I think at the end of the game, I think this Broncos defense, unlike last week, I think this Broncos defense makes a play at the end of the game. I think they do against this Cowboys offense. I think they make a play. I think their offense plays well too. I think Bo Nix throws 3 or 4 touchdowns. I think Dak plays well. But I think the Broncos defense plays well. I'll take the better coach here. I'm going to take the better coach to win this game. I think Bo Nix the Broncos got some momentum after coming back and beating the Giants. I think this is a close and competitive game. But this is what happens when the Cowboys play teams they're better than. They're not as good as. They lose. You've pretty much seen it. The Eagle game, they couldn't win that game. The Packer game, they needed to make one stop. They ended up tying that game. So, and the Bear game, they got blown out in. So, and even the Panthers, who have a better record than them right now, they couldn't make a stop at the end against them. So, the Cowboys usually don't beat teams that they're not as good as, and they beat up on the teams they're better than. The Jets, they beat the Giants, and they beat up a banged up Commanders team. So. I got the Broncos here. 28-24. But Justin, can Dak and the Cowboys stay hot and pull off the upset win in Denver?
No, I'm with you here. I got the Broncos as well, 30-24. I do think it's to be a high scoring one. I think Bo Nix plays better this week. I don't know what's going on right now with Denver and the way what they're doing offensively or with Bo Nix right now. It just feels like it's a lot of dink and dunk. They don't really trust them to take shots on the field at the moment. And they did there in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I do think this is gonna be one of Bo Nix's better games of the year, and I do think Dallas's defense is look better. But you mentioned the injuries helped that last week, and I do think their offense moves the ball though. And four consecutive games, the Cowboys haven't turned it over. So if they don't do that again, they got a chance here. But something too that could come into play. Being up in Denver Could they try Aubrey to kick from 70 yards out? Like
Maybe you see a
it's
record breaking
possible.
field goal there. Maybe see a record breaking
Yeah.
field goal on Sunday with Brandon Aubrey. He might be able to see it. We'll see.
I think we lost Steve there for a minute. I know we were going. He was talking there about maybe Aubrey seeing a record setter, um, performance or record setting from Aubrey here. But kicking wise, and this should be a fun one and a lot here on. Dallas really wins this game. Could be looking in good shape maybe to get back in there. But actually, and for let's move on to the next game here for it coming up this week. And next one is the Patriots and the Browns here. I thought the Patriots last week, first half wasn't great. Tennessee really played. I thought Cam Moore had a couple good plays there in the first half. The Patriots defense didn't look great there, but I thought there in the Patriots took kind of advantage there. They got the big fumble, strip sack, scored a defensive touchdown. Drake May took a big hit, which kind of worried me, but just missed a couple plays there. Josh Jobs kind of filled in. They finally got a running game going, almost averaged 5 yards a carry last week. So, against this Browns defense, I'm very concerned about this one. They're coming off, 3 consecutive road games. How they come back here at home against the Browns defense that's very elite, that can get after the passer. And Myles Garrett can kind of wreck the game. So it's a really good test here for this Patriots offensive line this week to see how they do against this Browns team. But again, Cleveland offense, Dylan Gabriel has not played great. He's been all right. Quinton Junkins is a huge part of their offense. They're going to need Junkins to really kind of carry the load this week. But, I do think Cleveland kind of messy this game up, keep this thing low scoring. Drake May is playing some really good football. He's maybe one of the best or the best deep ball passes in the sport right now. But again, I do see him maybe having a little bit of a tougher time this week getting going against a really good Cleveland defense that could carry them. And if Cleveland can force a turnover two on the road, I could see them being New England this week. I know New England's rush defense has been pretty good, but it'll be a good test this week against a really solid Cleveland team here. And it's one where I am kind of concerned, but I do think the Pacers team, if they want to kind of right now they're looking good for the playoffs. Maybe even can win this division. This is a game at home you got to win. So I do have the Patriots in this one, 20-13. But I do think it's an ugly football game here. But like the way the Pats are playing, think Cleveland will make this a game here. But one where I could see the Patriots easily slipping up, but think they can take care of business here. Finally back at home. We'll go to the next game here on the slate, and that is the Bills going to Carolina. Buffalo coming off the bye here. We're not playing good football there the last couple of weeks. The Falcons game and then the Patriots there on Sunday night. So for the Bills, they got to get off to a fast start because for Carolina, they can run the football, and Buffalo's been prone to giving up big plays on the ground. So for Buffalo, they got to come off the bye here with a fast start, get it going. Because Josh Allen right now has got to play kind of Superman, a lot like because they just I don't think there's a lot of talent right now around Buffalo, without Josh Allen. So for them this week, they need the fast start. Carolina, Andy Dalton's, if Bryce Young can't go, it's going to be Andy Dalton, who's a capable backup. He's not great, but I think he can play pretty well against his Bills team. I really like the way Carolina's been playing. I think they're a physical football team. Derek Brown up front, the defensive line's been playing well. Rico Dowdle's kind of really gotten going here. But this is a good test here for Carolina. They've been playing being the best football that we've seen in the last like 4 or 5 years, maybe. And for Buffalo, just where they are here coming off the bye, it's a big spot, for them, just to kind of see where they're at now. I think they need another wide receiver, but I don't know, like a Jalen Waddle. I don't think Miami would trade him here. I don't know, how much Jacoby Meyer could add to him. I'm not sure any other wide receivers right now that could really help him out right now. But with the Bills kind of got the Chiefs next week at home, kind of looming here. They can't really take Carolina lightly, and they got to take care of business here on the road against Carolina. Um, up next here, we got another team coming off a bye, and that's the Ravens hosting Chicago. Not sure on the status of Lamar Jackson. I do think with the way the line is right now, it's 6.5, 5.5, hovering right around there. I do think that's Vegas kind of telling you that they think he's going to play, and I do think this is Baltimore team that's in a desperate spot right now. If they have any shot of saving their season, they're about to go on a 3-game road trip. I know with to Miami, Minnesota, and Cleveland. I know a couple of those teams maybe not great, but if there's any chance this team's got any life back into them, they got to win this football game. The Bears have been forcing turnovers, but there's some luck to that. When you're forcing turnovers, they forced 16 of them on the year. I think Caleb Williams is playing pretty good football. And this Bears team right now, they scored 21 points in all 6 of their games. And I think, right now, I don't think anybody else in the league's done that. So Ben Johnson's fixed this offense here. Caleb Williams is playing well. I think this defense isn't great, and I think Baltimore can get going on the ground this week. But I do think the Bears are going to move the ball, just because the Bears are, because the Ravens defense isn't great. There's a lot of injuries. They've struggled all year here, but coming off the bye, I expect the Ravens to win this football game here at home before going on a 3-game road trip. I do have the Ravens 27-24 this week, but expect this to be a good football game, a high-scoring one. Should be a good one. Next, we're going to say another team here in the AFC North, and that is the New York Jets traveling to the Bengals. Joe Flacco may have saved Cincinnati's season last week. He carved up Pittsburgh, every which way, and he pretty much just learned all you have to do is target Jamar Chase, and he had 16 catches for 161 yards, and he targeted him 23 of his 47 attempts. They got somewhat of a ground game going. Chase Brown had over 100 yards. That was the first time all year. That's the first time all year he's had more than 50 yards in a game. So Chase Brown really ran the ball well this last week against Pittsburgh. They're coming off they're coming off extra rest here. They're playing a Jet team that is just so dysfunctional right now. Their owner Woody Johnson yesterday saying, if they could only complete a pass, they'd be in better shape. But they were the ones that, Aaron Glennon's the one that brought in Justin Fields. It's on him, and it's on him, with the quarterback play. Fields, Tyrod Taylor missed some guys too last week. They brought him in the second half. That's another thing. They're, that's just a team right now that's got no identity. There's no culture getting in New York. They're completing a dumpster fire. We'll see if this is a one and done with Aaron Glenn and with the New York Jets, because it's just a mess right now. And I think Cincinnati. I think this week again, I just think there's too much firepower playing against this New York Jets team, and I just I know the Bengals defense stinks. It's one of the worst in the sport, and I think we're about to have Steve back here.
I'm back. Thank you for carrying us there. I had an internet issue.
Of course.
Thank you for carrying us there. So
of course.
Where are we?
I am on the Bengals Jets game right now. Just talking about.
Yep, let's do that.
No problem.
Hey, good thing we had the Patriots there, and right after.
Yeah.
Right after I went out, but yeah, we're back. So Bengals and Jets. I'll give my thoughts on that game first. Yeah, you saw did you talk about Woody Johnson yet?
Yes, I was just mentioning about Woody Johnson's comments about the offense of Justin Fields, which I was saying. Aaron Glenn is the guy who brought in Justin Fields. It's not like Justin Fields knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm your new starting quarterback." They brought him in. So I would like to see what your take is on the Woody Johnson remarks.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good to call it your quarterback like that. It's not good to call it the quarterback. It's bad. The Jets are just an absolute disaster right now. The Jets it's disastrous for them. It's awful. And I think that they're going to have they're going to have issues this week in Cincinnati. I think their defense competes against Joe Flacco. Maybe they force a turnover or two, but I'm going Bengals here. I got the Bengals 24-17 over the Jets, and it looks like you got the Jets winning at 24-16.
Yeah, I got the Bengals take care of business. I think Joe Flacco continues to play well this week, and yeah, I think against this Jets defense, which played better, but I do think Flacco, and what I said earlier is again, you got Jamar Chase. Flacco targeted him 23 times. All he had to do is just throw the ball up, and I know Sauce Gardner might be banged up and may not go this week, so like the Bengals as well here.
Yeah, I'm going Bengals. I'm going Bengals 24-17 over the Jets. The Niners head to Houston to take on the Texans. So an interesting game there between the Niners and Texans in Houston. And I think this is a close competitive game. And I know Nico Collins might not play, but I'm going to go with the Texans here because they're desperate. I think the Texans are desperate for a win. I think they get pressure on Brock Purdy if he plays. I think they force a couple turnovers. And I think that CJ Stroud is a decent game here. I think it's a decent game. And I think this game comes down to the end, but I think the Niners end up winning it. I think they win it with. I think the Texans end up winning it. They win it with the game-winning field goal. I got Houston winning this game, 23-20. But Justin, can the Niners bounce back? No, can the Niners can keep up the momentum from what they did last week and get to 6-2?
Yeah, I got the Niners here 24-17. I just think the Texans are about to waste an all-time great defense right now. Again, they Seattle did whatever they could last week to try to hand Houston the game, turn the ball over 4 times, and Houston still couldn't take advantage. I know, that Mac Jones, he's likely to get to start again this week, and I think Christian McCaffrey, they're gonna run him into the ground, it seems like, but he's last week was his best game of the year. I think Mac Jones continues to play well, and CJ Stroud, like, there's just their offensive line so bad, and they have not helped. But even when he does have a clean pocket for a couple of seconds, he's still like in his head is getting rid of the ball. And kind of see me just a little bit of panic there, even panic of him just being so used to being under duress every time, that he's got to kind of get rid of the football quickly. So I think the Niners get enough pressure on him. I do think it causes a turnover too, and I think the Niners win again and move to 6-2.
All righties, we got a matchup in Atlanta between the Dolphins and Falcons, and I think the Falcons cruise here. I think the Falcons cruise. I think Bijan Robinson is a big game on the ground. I think Michael Penix throws a touchdown pass or two. I think the defense forces some turnovers. Dolphins are a bad team. They proved it last week. They're one of the worst teams in football. I think they're going to continue to prove it this week. I got the Falcons here 30-17 over the Dolphins. But Justin, can Tua lead the Falcons to an upset win in Atlanta?
No, this is another train wreck. We talked about one with the Jets. This Miami team's quit on the coach. They've quit on Tua. McDaniels this week kind of said, forget what the question was, but said, yeah, we have a chance for a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't throw 10 interceptions. So McDaniel's now even taking shots at Tua. It's ugly. Bijan Robinson, I think, all day. Even if Penning's banged up, I think all they need is Bijan Robinson this week, and they just run all over this Miami defense that can't stop anything. And they're just way too much drama in that Miami locker room. So I love the Falcons this week. I think they bounce back this week, take care of business, gets a putrid Miami team.
Yeah, I think they did. I think they do, and I think it'll be 2 more games. I think 2 more games McDaniels has left. I think he loses. I think he loses to the. I think when he loses to the Falcons, and he loses to the Falcons, he loses to the Ravens next week. I think he's gone. I think McDaniels gone if he loses the next 2 weeks. All right, we got an NFC South matchup in New Orleans between the Bucs and the Saints. Should be an interesting game here between the 2 teams because of all the injuries the Bucs have. But at the end of the day, I think the Bucs end up pulling this out. I think Baker Mayfield plays really well in this game. I think he does. I think Spencer Rattler competes, but I think he turns the ball over once or twice. I think the loss of Eric McCoy is going to hurt the Saints, especially in the run game. And I do think the Bucs. I think it's close, but I do think the Bucs pull this one out. I got to win it 27-20 over the Saints. But Justin, can Spencer Rattler win his first NFC South game on Sunday?
I think they keep it close here, but I got the Bucs 23-20. I think in this one, for the Bucs, I know it's a tough spot. You just got beat pretty badly against Detroit on Monday night. Now you go on a division road game here, but Chris Olave through the air, I think, could have a pretty good game. And for Rattler too in the Saints team in the first quarter this year, they're getting outscored, I believe it's 66-16. So they have to get off to a better start this week. To me, tough to move the ball on Tampa through the running game, but I do think through the air, Spencer Rattler, Chris Olave could have a pretty good day. I think they keep it close, but I just think Tampa finds a way to get out of New Orleans unscathed.
Alrighty, AFC South matchup in Indy between the Titans and the Colts, and this game shouldn't be close. Daniel Jones has been playing great so far. I think he continues to play great. I think the Colts defense forces Cam Ward to turn the ball over a couple times. I got a blowout here. I got the Colts winning big. I got the Colts 34-13 over the Titans. And Justin, I assume you got the same.
Yeah, I got the Colts here 34-14. It should be a blowout. I thought Titans played well for the first half against the Patriots last week. I thought, Ward moved the ball pretty well. Second half, they kind of fell apart. I think Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, they do whatever they want against this defense here. I think, the Colts offensive line's been playing great, and I think they protect Daniel Jones yet again this week, and I think they carve him up, blow out Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do. I think this is a complete blowout in Indy on Sunday. Now we'll wrap up talking about the Commanders and the Washington Commanders against the Chiefs. Jaden Daniels, it looks like Jaden Daniels will be out of this game. It'll be Marcus Mariota. I think the Commanders' defense was terrible last week, just absolutely terrible against the Cowboys. I think it's going to be the same thing as the Chiefs. They're going to have a very rough day. I think Mahomes is going to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns. Mariota might keep them in the game, but it's not going to be enough. I got the Chiefs here, 35-20 over the Commanders. But Justin, can Mariota and Dan Quinn lead the Commanders to an upset win in Kansas City?
No, I'm with you. I got the Chiefs here 20-16. The Chiefs look like they got their groove. They're able to take shots on the field. Rice is back. They got Hollywood Brown still, and that opens some things up for the short game for Travis Kelce. Wouldn't be shocked the Chiefs get into the 30s here. Washington looked abysmal last week. Their defense is not going to get right this week. And even if Daniels plays, it's a hamstring injury. He's not going to be mobile. He's going to be statue back in the pocket. So I think the Chiefs win this thing convincingly by at least 2 scores. They've really looked like their offense is kind of in a groove right now and back.
And they've looked ever since the first 2 weeks of the season. They've arguably looked like they've arguably looked like the best team in the AFC and arguably the best team in the NFL. I think they're back, especially with this explosive passing game with Worthy being in there. Rashid Rice is back. Last week they looked great against the Raiders. The Chiefs are looking really, really good, especially offensively. This is the most explosive I think they've been offensively in a while because of the weapons, because of the addition of Xavier Worthy and getting Rashid Rice back. I think it's the most explosive the Chiefs have been probably since Tyreek Hill got traded.
Probably, yeah. That's what 3 years ago now, 4 years ago. So yeah,
4 years ago,
I would agree with you. It's been a while since they've looked like it. But yeah, right now they do look like their old selves, and that's a dangerous thing right now. I know they took their losses early, but there might not be a ton. I know they got Buffalo next week that's got their issues, but so I'm with you. I think the Chiefs have figured it out right now, and they look great.
And you brought up that Chiefs-Bills game. We'll definitely be talking about that game next week. We'll definitely be talking about that Chiefs-Bills game next week. So make sure you're tuning in for that. So we'll transition to the NBA. The NBA season began last night. It started with the Thunder beating the Rockets, 125-124 in double overtime. The Thunder beat the Rockets. And the big question is more we all know the Thunder are the favorite to come out of the West and get to the NBA Finals. But I think the big question here is, are the Rockets the biggest threat to the Thunder in the Western Conference? And it did look like it last night, but I think a big reason why was because Jalen Williams was out. I think that was a big reason why Jalen Williams was out. That to me that was the big reason why the game was as close as it was. And I don't think they are. And here's my reason why I don't think they are. They don't have that consistent third. The Van Fleet loss is big, and they don't have that consistent third score. With Durant and Şengün, Durant's still a top 10, top 15 player. Şengün is an all-star, but who's that third guy? Could Amen Thompson be that third guy? He played pretty well last night. Could he be? We'll see if he becomes that third guy. But you're not going to be able to count. I don't think you're going to be able to count Jabari Smith being that third scorer, and you're definitely not counting on Steven Adams being that third scorer, or even Reed Shepard being that third scorer. So can Amen Thompson be that third scorer? We'll see. He's young, was a top 5 pick. We'll see. But as of right now, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say the Rockets are not the biggest threat to the Thunder. Even though they almost beat them last night, I'm going to say the Rockets are not the biggest threat to the Thunder in the Western Conference. Justin, do you think the Rockets are the biggest threat to the Thunder in the Western Conference?
No, I'm with you. I don't have them either because you said it, the third consistent scorer. I also too like Fred VanVleet was like their one point guard too. I know like Reed Shepard's kind of going to be that guy now. I know they have Şengün is a pretty good distributor. I know Durant can kind of bring up the ball, but like that's the thing. Like they just have too many guys. Like who's going to be that point guard now without Fred VanVleet, and that's where I'm kind of a little bit concerned. That team's going to play great defense. They get great rim protectors with Jabari Smith and Steven Adams and Clint Capella coming off the bench, too. I know he didn't play a ton last night, but they're going to be really good defensively. I think Durant helps out for him, obviously in a big way for scoring. But I worry about that third score, and I also worry about the point guard play just because I don't know if you're gonna get that consistency every night from, when you might need 3 to 4 guys every night bring up the ball.
Yeah, you made a great point about the point guard. The point guard, that's big because they have Van Fleet. I'd probably have them. I don't know if I would have them as the biggest threat, but I'd have them top 3. Van Fleet's a loss. Now, it's not like losing Durant or Şengün, but it's a loss. So there's their third best player. To me, he's their third best player. So Van Fleet is definitely a loss. You made a good point about the point guard.
Yeah, that's going to be big. Yeah, because I like Şengün. He can bring it up. I like Durant can bring it up. But yeah, just Van Vliet's a really good kind of can orchestrate the offense, can also give you that scoring element. So yeah, I'd probably have him right there. With another team that I have that I have in front of him. If he was healthy, I'd probably have him third in the West. So I do think they're solid teams still, but yeah, I just think that Fred injury might come back to bite him here. At some point, like in a playoff series or something.
Yeah. There's a really good. Yeah, it definitely could. It absolutely could. Now, the other game last night, the Warriors beat the Lakers 119-100. Luka had 40. The Lakers didn't have LeBron last night. Jimmy Butler had 31. Steph had 23 for the Dubs. And the question really is which team has a better chance to make a run this year, the Warriors or the Lakers? And I know the Warriors won last night, but I'm going to go with the Lakers. And I think it's because of the big 3. I'll take the big 3 of Luka, LeBron, and Reeves over the big 3 of Steph, Butler, and Kuminga. I'll take the Lakers' big 3 over the Warriors' big 3. That's why I think that the Lakers are going to. I think that the Lakers have a better chance to make a run than the Warriors do.
I'm moving with the Warriors.
Ooh, going Warriors.
Yeah, I'm moving with the Warriors. I think with the core of Curry, Butler. I know they got Draymond still and Jimmy Butler there. I know they're an older group, but I also like the guys they can put around them. They got Podziemski who can knock down the shots. I know Buddy Hield could be very up and down. He can knock down shots here too. You got Draymond defensively that helps out. They bring in Al Horford that I know he's 39, 40 now, but he needs to be somebody that's kind of they need to bring in added size, and he does bring that for him. And then also, Jonathan Kuminga, I get why he doesn't play a ton with Curry and Butler on the floor because he needs the ball in his hands, but he's somebody too that could be a scorer. I know he had a pretty good game last night. He could be somebody too that could be an impact guy as well. So I do like the Warriors a little bit better than the Lakers. I do still worry about the Lakers offensively just a bit more than I like the way Golden State played there down the stretch as well at the end of last year.
Yeah, I just like the Lakers. I like their big 3 better. I like their big 3 better in LA. But the Warriors are definitely with Butler. It definitely is it's close between those 2 teams. It definitely is, and the big reason why is because that addition of Jimmy Butler. That was a great trade the Warriors made last year. So we'll move towards the Eastern Conference, and the Cavs and Knicks play tonight. And the question really is: are these the 2 best teams in the Eastern Conference? And I think it's pretty obvious they are. They are. It's pretty obvious with Halliburton being out, and Turner getting signed by the Bucks.
I think we may have lost Steve there again for oh, you back?
Are the Cavs and Knicks the 2 best teams in the East? And I think they are. I think it's pretty obvious that they are.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Evan Mobley kind of being now his 5th year, and he's continuing to make strides every year. I like what the Cavaliers just have around them. I know they got banged up there that in the playoffs, but Donovan Mitchell still. I like Darius Garland, so I like the way Cleveland can play defense. They can also knock down some shots as well. So I do like the Cavs, and with the Knicks, I'm interested to see how Mike Brown does with this roster. They're going to play a lot more up tempo with this group. I'm interested to see kind of how he uses Jalen Brunson. I like Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench here as well. And year 2 with Cat as well. That's only going to help the chemistry. So the backup point guard spot going to be interesting for the Knicks, but I do think there's a ton of talent on this team. And I think them and the Cavs right now. I have them pretty confident those two, one way or another, are going to finish 1-2.
Yeah, I think they are, and then and we'll get to our our Eastern. What we think the Eastern Conference, our top. We'll get to our top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference, and we already told you our top two. It's pretty obvious, but the order. I'm going to go Cavs in the regular season. I'm going to go the Cavs. I'm going to go Cavs 1 because they had. I got to see how the chemistry. I can't completely trust Mike Brown yet. I think they the Hawks. I like that they got Trae Young. They got Dyson Daniels Jalen Johnson had a good year for them last year, and they added Kristaps Porzingis. So I like that big three. I know in the West they would be the 8th seed, but I think I got the Hawks at 4. I'm gonna go Bucks at 5 because they got the best player in the conference. They got the best player in the conference. I know outside of him and Turner, it's a very average starting lineup outside of him and Miles Turner. But they got the best player in the conference. That's why I'm going to go Bucks 5. 6, I'm going to go with the Pistons. I loved what I saw to Cade Cunningham last year. He definitely proved that he's an all-star and a potential superstar. He had a great year last year for the Pistons. They're going to get Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey is out for the first season. They're better. Big question. Can he be that guy? Can Jaylen Brown be the guy that can carry a team? I don't think he can. That's why I think the Celtics finished 7th. I like that they got Simons. I do like Simons, though. I think the Simons addition is going to help them at least get into the play-in and eventually into the playoffs. But but I don't know if it's going to get the Celtics any further. And then number 8, I'm going to go Sixers just because of their talent. You can't count the Sixers out because of their talent with Tyrese Maxey and with Joel Embiid, but you can't put them like top 5 because you can't rely on Embiid to stay healthy. So my top 5 are Cavs 1, Knicks 2, Magic 3, Hawks 4, Bucks 5, Pistons 6, Celtics 7, Sixers 8. Justin, your top 8.
We have some difference here. Number 1 for me, I got the Cavaliers as well, though. I think Evan Mobley is a big kind of X factor in this team. He had a career high in 3-pointers last year made. The injuries derailed him. Lonzo Ball could be a decent kind of backup point guard if the knee is if the knee's right, and he could say, well, I think it's a really balanced roster, and can this be the year they finally take that next step in Cleveland? I think it's very possible. My second team, I got the Knicks here. Last year, his team kind of comes on the health. Blake Mitchell Robinson, I know he's already banged up. It sounds like you just need him to be ready for April. That's what you need him there for. Mike Brown's a question mark. Very loyal to the guys. He's kind of like Tibbs. May not play a ton of his. May not. He'll play his bench guys, but he won't trust them. To play through a ton of mistakes. But I think they're play with more tempo this year. How does he do with Jalen Brunson? I think it'd be interesting to watch that combination there. So I do like the Knicks. Number 3, I have the Pistons. I know Jaden Ivey might not be, or not gonna be healthy.
Ooh, going Pistons 3. Wow.
Yeah. I really liked this team last year. I love the way they play defense. It's kind of they play like the '90s teams. They're no basket's going to come easy for their opponents. I think Cade Cunningham takes another step forward there. They got their first playoff win since 2008. I like some of the marginal talent that they brought in here. And I thought they added a couple of good veterans around kind of the young guys that they do have here. So I do like where the Pistons are at. Number 4, I got the Bucks here. It's a weird roster construction. They got too many bigs, I think. They don't have a ton of guards. They got rid of Middleton last year. They cut Damian Lillard. They bring in Miles Turner. That's a good kind of guy that can stretch the floor as a big. They got rid of Brook Lopez. Giannis is still the second best player in the sport, best player in the Eastern Conference. So I think, even with him, I think they could kind of lead the way there and still hang around and be a top 4 seed in the East. Number 5, I got Orlando. Another team that plays phenomenal defense. The 3-point shooting, can they up that enough this year? They extended Paolo Banchero. Desmond Bane comes in, who is a career 41% 3-point shooter. Jalen Suggs had a kind of a breakout year before he suffered that knee injury. Can he take that next step too for this team? Because it's, they got a pretty good maybe outside like the Hawks is the only team that could challenge them in that one. So I like this Orlando team. They got to make their 3 points to take that next step. Number 6 at Boston. I know, kind of a retooling year for him. But we'll see how Jaylen Brown does as being the lead guy here. I like, as you mentioned, Anthony Simmons. I like to bringing him as another scorer. Paying pitcher, could he take another step up this year? Sam Hauser. Like I think with the Celtics, you're gonna see a ton of variance from them because they're gonna hit it. Just because of how many threes they take. Like there's gonna be games where they they'll get blown out by teams, but they'll also upset some of the top tier teams just if they're on fire one night. So, let's see defensively. Let's see how they do. I like Hugo Gonzalez, the guy they drafted in the first round. I think he's somebody could be an impact guy. So I'm pretty high on the Celtics. Number 7, I have Indiana. No Halburn probably most of the year. You lose Turner, but I like Aaron Nesmith, resigns. Who fills in at the center spot? Because James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, and Jay Huff, none of them have been like full-time starters at the center spot. That's going to figure out, and they're going to need a lot more from Pascal Siakam. He's going to have to be the lead guy in offense this year. How does he do? He's going to have to be big step, and Benedict Mathen and Andrew Nemhart, they're going to have to up their scoring a bit too here to fill in that hole. Number 8, you're much higher on the Hawks than I am. I'm just not a big Trae Young guy. I do like what they brought in, like Nikolai Alexander Walker, Luke Kennard, Porzingis, like all those guys could shoot, and that's going to help their 3-point shooting. Rasmus Shear, second, could he take that step? And Dyson Daniel, I like, who's, one of the best defenders in the sport. He averaged, 3 steals a game last year, and Alexander Walker's going to help their defense out as well. They're just talking about this Atlanta team. I just can't totally trust them. But I do think they are better. And I wouldn't be shocked if I'm wrong about this team, they end up being higher, but I just got to see it from Trae. They've been here for 4 straight years. They've been in the play. And so wouldn't be shocked they make it 5.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So yours. So what's yours? So you got the Cavs and Knicks. Then you got the Pistons. Pistons
Detroit.
3, which is a surprise.
Yeah.
Detroit 3, which is a surprise. You got Milwaukee 4.
Milwaukee 4.
Who do you got?
5 Orlando.
Orlando.
Yeah. 6 Boston. 7 Indy. 8.
Oh, you went Indy. So you went Indy over Philly.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just don't know what the health of Embiid is going to be down the stretch this year.
Yeah, on paper,
I'm all out on the Sixers.
To me, on paper, I just think Philly's better. I know the coaching is better with the Pacers. I know they've been to the conference finals and the finals last year, but they lost a top 15 player in Tyrese Halliburton and a really good player in Miles Turner. I think they just lost too much. To me, I think they might get into the play-in, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they make the playoffs. Now moving on to the Western Conference, and number 1, obviously the Thunder with the MVP and SGA. You got a really good player in Jalen Williams, who did not play last night. I think that was the reason why that game was as close as it was. You got a player in Jalen Williams. You got Chet Holmgren, who's a good 3. Just a good starting 5 all around, with Lou Dort and Hartenstein. A good starting 5 all around. Good coach, Mark Daigneault. So they're number 1. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Nuggets. With David Andelman being the head coach, I think things are going to be more functional. I think things were kind of a little dysfunctional these last couple of years between the GM and Michael Malone. I think things were a little bit with Calvin Booth and Michael Malone. I think things were a little dysfunctional. It's going to be more functional now with the Nuggets. So, and they got the best player in the sport, Nikola Jokic. You got Jamal Murray. You got they traded for Cam Johnson. So, and Aaron Gordon. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets being number 2, and they were the team that took the Pacers did, but they were the team that gave the Nuggets their best series in the Western Conference last year, so I'm going with the Nuggets too. Number 3, I'm going to go Lakers. I think with an entire year with Luka and LeBron together, and you got Austin Reeves, I think an entire year of Luka and LeBron together, I think they're going to be the 3rd best. They did finish 3rd last year, but I think they're going to finish 3rd behind the Thunder and the Nuggets. Number 4, I'm going to go Rockets with Kevin Durant and Alfred Şengün. I think, and I think Amen Thompson's going to take a step up. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to take a step up this year. So I think he's going to be the guy that does it. So I'm going to go with the Rockets 4th. 5th, I'm going to go with the T-Wolves. I like Anthony Edwards, and I like Julius Randle. But where else is the scoring coming from? Jaden McDaniels is a really good defender, but Jaden McDaniel. I'm trying to think. Jaden McDaniel. He's a good defender, but where else is the scoring coming from? And I don't love the relationship between Chris Finch and Anthony Edwards. I'm not I don't think they're good enough to get to a conference final, but I feel like there's a ceiling there, and I don't think they'll be as good as they've been other years. So I got the T-Wolves fifth, sixth. I'm going Warriors because I like Steph and Butler will make them contenders. They'll be contenders, but do you Kuminga's good, but do you trust anyone outside of those two guys that to be completely consistent? That's why I got the Warriors six. Seven, I'm going Clippers. They got Kawhi and Harden. They're all stars now, but they're not superstars anymore. That's why I got them seven. And eight, I'm going with the Spurs. The De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama combo. I got them going to the playoffs this year. I got the Spurs going to the playoffs. Victor Wembanyama could very easily be a top 10. It could very easily be a top 10 player at the end of this year. We could be talking about Victor Wembanyama being top 10, arguably top 5 because he's got so much potential. So I'm going Spurs with the number 8 seed. Justin, your top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference.
Yeah, for me, same number one as you. I got the OKC Thunder here, the defending champions, the youngest team out there. They returned 95% of the minutes I played for them last year. So young team. They still got a ton of draft picks. They got 2 guys that are over the age 27. So this is a team that could win a couple more championships, in the next couple of years here with all the superstars, with Chet, SGA, and Jalen Williams, who's emerging to be that next superstar in the sport here. Just not a lot of knock about this team, but phenomenal. Number 2, I got the Denver Nuggets. I think this team back to where they were a couple years ago when they won the championship. I think this is the deepest team that they've had since then. If Jamal Murray could stay healthy, Aaron Gordon played pretty well throughout the playoffs. I like bringing in Cameron Johnson. And I think it's the best backup big that they have with Jonas Valanciunas coming in as well. So, Christian Brown, had a breakout year, gets a big extension this week. I really like where this Denver team is right now. Number 3 for me, I'm going with the Spurs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really,
Yeah.
you're really high on it. You're the Stefan Castle, I bet.
Castle, Fox. It's going to be fun to watch, but also going to be hurt to not see Fox in the Kings jersey anymore. But I think that's going to be a special duo with Wemby. I think adding Dylan Harper to the guard spot as well, who can knock down their 3-point shots as well. I think they got a really young core. I might be a little bit too high on them. I get that, but I just think Wemby. I think Wemby's gonna be unbelievable. I think Harrison Barnes too can, as a stretch forward. Devin Vassell can knock down shots as well. So I like what the Spurs can do. I think Fox and Wemby, I think that's gonna be a really fun combination to watch, and I'm really high on that group. Number 4, I got the Houston Rockets. I think it's a good core. The injuries kind of, the Fred VanVleet injury we talked about, it's kind of huge. Reed Shepard's going to have to take a major step up this year. I like Adams and Jabari Smith as paint protectors. Sengun's really good as well. They're a big team. They're going to defend. They can multiple guys can kind of defend multiple positions for them. I really like the Houston team. But yeah, the question is, who's that number 3 consistent scorer for them? Number 5, I got the T-Wolves. They're going to play excellent defense. They got, this is a team that was only 3 games over 500 in late February, and they closed kind of the year 17-4. So they played well down the stretch. Edwards kind of star. He'll take his nights off though. When he's on the floor, and mentioned McDaniels, can he take that next step? Can he take that next step too? As as another playmaker for this group? Because I feel like they still could use another one as well. Because he is such a terrific defender, can kind of guard multiple spots. So I had the T-Wolves number 5. 6, I got Golden State. Jimmy Butler, that team played well down the stretch since he came in. They're 23-9. They still got Curry, who can, is going to knock down shots. They got Porzingis, and Buddy Hield that will knock down their threes as well. I think Al Horford helps defensively, a little bit, can knock down shots. Draymond Green still there, going to play tough, physical defense. So I do like the Warriors as well. Number 7, I got the Lakers. The rich will get richer for them. Bringing in Luka, who looks like he's in a lot better shape this year. He looks, better shape. LeBron's gonna miss the next couple of weeks. They got DeAndre, and they kind of be an anchor down low, which they needed. Jake LaVervey off the bench here. I like him to be kind of a stretch that can kind of knock down the shots. Jackson Hayes as well, coming in the backup big. I like bringing in Marcus Smart too for the defense. He's gonna really help out that defense, but he's only played in 54 games the last 2 years. How healthy is he gonna be all year? Austin Reeves, can he take a step in year 5? Because they could really use it as well. Number 8 for me is the Clippers. I think they have talent. I just can't trust this core of Kawhi, James Harden. They got Brooke Lopez, Chris Paul. Like it's an older group, and Bradley Beal too. How many of these games did they all play with each other on the floor this year? I'd be higher on the team if they were all together 5 years ago. But I think they have some depth for the first time in quite a while here. Zubac, I love down low too. One of the better. I think he's a little bit overrated at the center spot. But I like the Clippers kind of in eighth. I think there's talent. I think maybe they could give maybe they give the Thunder a run if they face off in the postseason for a game or two. But I just think they're veteran group that I just think they're going to be banged up throughout the season. I just don't think there'd be a ton of cohesion throughout the year.
Yeah, it looks like that. So you have the same teams as me, but just different order. You got the Thunder, you got the Nuggets, you got the Spurs, surprisingly at 3. Got the Rockets, you got the T-Wolves, you got the Warriors, the Lakers at 7. It's kind of like you're high on the Spurs, I'm high on the Lakers, and then you got the Clippers at 8. So should be interesting to see what happens in the Western Conference. But we'll do our NBA Finals pick and our MVP before we wrap up. My NBA Finals pick, I'm going to go, obviously, with the Thunder in the West, and I'm going to go with the Knicks in the East because I don't trust the Cavs in the playoffs. I just don't. They've lost the last 2 years. They lost last year. They were number 1 seed. They won 68. They won 64 games, and they lost in the second round. I don't trust the Cavs. I'm going to get to the postseason, so I'm going to go Thunder over Knicks in the NBA Finals. Who's your NBA Finals pick?
For me, we got one of the same. One of the teams similar. I'm going with the Nuggets over the Knicks. I'm really high in the Nuggets this year. I think because remember last year, Denver gave OKC their toughest challenge maybe outside of Indiana. Now I think Denver's even better this year. So I think Jokic's still the best player in the sport. I think that guy's a walking triple double. And I think the Knicks get there. I'm with you. I think they knock off the Cavs this year. I don't totally trust Cleveland. So I think this is the next year to get there, but I just think Denver's loaded. I think it's the best roster they've had since they won title a couple years ago. I'm going to take the Denver Nuggets to win the finals this year. I think you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Jokic is the MVP. That's what I'm
saying. Okay. You're breaking up there for a second.
Yeah, I'm going Jokic.
You're going Jokic? I'm going with Victor Wembanyama. This is why it's so hard in the Spurs. Because I thought he just got even better last year for the injury. He's going to probably win Defensive Player of the Year again. Look, it's a loaded Western Conference, but I think that guy, he can make such an impact on the defensive floor. Also at 7'5", can knock down the threes. And I think, with the Spurs team that I'm really high on this year, I think, De'Aaron Fox as a point guard is kind of a lob threat. With Castle too is a really good passer. I really think Wembanyama now, we're going to really see the unveiled potential. And I think if the Spurs end up being in third place, it's because of Victor Wembanyama. And I think that'll be enough. I think Jokic is the best player in the sport, but the last couple of years, it seems like the Raiders are bored of picking him every year. So I'm going to go with Wemby. That kind of similar to Jokic, to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a good pick, taking Wemby there. All right, that's going to wrap it up. That's going to wrap up this edition of Sports Talk with R&J. But we'll be back in 15 minutes previewing the World Series and talking about Week 9 of the college football season. So make sure you tune in for that.